What if I told you that everything you've been taught about money, about saving, about investing, about compound interest, was only half the truth? You've probably heard it 1,000 times. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Let your money work for you, and one day you'll be rich. It sounds magical, doesn't it? Like you've stumbled upon a cheat code for wealth. But here's the cruel truth nobody dares to tell you. If you don't play this game the right way, compound interest won't make you rich. It will leave you disappointed, frustrated, and wondering what went wrong. So stay with me, because in the next few minutes I'm going to show you a story that will open your eyes. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at money the same way again. Let me introduce you to Pedro. Let's call him Little Peter. He was disciplined. He lived below his means. He avoided eating out, skipped the designer clothes, said no to expensive parties. At just 25 years old, Peter was already putting aside $200 every single month into investments. He had read the books, listened to the gurus, believed the dream. Start early, and the magic of compounding will do the rest. 10 years passed. One day, with excitement in his heart, Peter logged into his account. And what did he see? Around $44,000. That's it. 10 years of sacrifice, 10 years of discipline. And all he had to show for it was an amount that couldn't even buy him freedom from his job. He felt like a failure. He thought, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe this doesn't really work. But here's the truth. Peter didn't do anything wrong. He followed the advice that most people are given. What he didn't know is that he was trying to push a snowball using just a snowflake. Because here's what they don't tell you. Compound interest is not magic. It's a multiplier. It doesn't reward discipline alone. It rewards weight. If you invest $100,000, compounding will turn it into $200,000, then $400,000, and beyond. But if you invest $1, it'll only become $2. Same rules, same math, but dramatically different outcomes. The cruel truth is that compounding does not work unless you feed it with enough fuel. Pedro thought he was building a fortune, but in reality, he was just keeping himself busy. Years passed, and Peter eventually got a better job. Now he was investing $750 a month. He felt confident again, hopeful. He thought, this time, it will be different. He invested consistently for another 10 years. And when he checked his account after 20 years of sacrifice, he saw around $300,000. A decent number, right? But let's be honest. After 2 decades of hard work, was that really freedom? Could he retire? Could he breathe? Could he finally stop trading his time for money? Not even close. Once again, Peter felt defeated. That's when he realized something that stings. Money refuses to work for you unless you give it a decent salary first. Compounding looks like magic only until real numbers show up. You can be smart, disciplined, even start young, but if you don't give compounding enough to chew on, the miracle never happens. That's the first cruel truth. But here's the part that hurts even more. Peter didn't realize that if he had simply kept going, those $300,000 would have eventually transformed. In 10 more years, they would have grown to $1.1 million. In 20 years, $3.6 million. Enough to generate $36,000 a month in passive income. But he quit too soon. He planted the seed, but never waited for the tree to bear fruit. And this is the paradox of compounding. It feels like nothing for a very long time. It tests your patience. It tests your belief. For years, it looks like you're failing. But then, suddenly, the curve explodes, and what once looked impossible becomes inevitable. That's why Albert Einstein called it the most powerful force in the universe. Not because it works fast, but because it works relentlessly once the momentum builds. So what's the lesson here? Compounding is not a fairy tale. It doesn't reward the dreamers who invest pennies and hope for millions. It rewards those who combine 3 things: rate of return, time, and capital. Miss any one of them, and the formula collapses. Have all 3, and you unlock exponential growth. Let's break it down. Imagine 3 people. Carlos, conservative, sticking to fixed income investments, earning about 8% per year. Larissa, a little braver, putting money into real estate funds, pulling 11% per year. And Julio, who built a solid stock portfolio, averaging 14%. Each of them invests the same, $500 per month for 30 years. What happens? Carlos ends up with around $704,000. Larissa finishes with about $1.2 million. And Julio, a staggering $2.3 million. Same effort, same discipline, but a difference of over $1.5 million. All because of just 3% extra return per year. That's the cruel truth about compounding. It magnifies everything. A tiny edge today becomes a massive gap tomorrow. A 1% difference in returns can mean $500,000 more in your pocket 30 years later. That's why the rich obsess over small advantages. That's why they pay for knowledge, for strategies, for leverage. They know that compounding is not about luck. It's about stacking the odds in your favor. But there's another number just as important as returns: time. Let's rewind. Imagine Carlos again, but this time he starts at 18 years old. He invests $500 per month at 12% annually until he's 65. Larissa, on the other hand, starts at 25 and doubles her contributions to $1,000 per month. Julio starts even later, at 30, investing $1,500 monthly. You'd think Julio would win. After all, he's putting the most. But when the dust settles, Carlos, who invested the least money overall, finishes with the most wealth, over $10 million, simply because he started earlier. That's the brutal beauty of compounding. It doesn't just multiply money, it multiplies time. The earlier you start, the less you need. The later you start, the harder the climb. And yet, most people delay. They tell themselves, I'll start when I earn more. I'll start when I have extra. But the extra never comes. Life always finds a way to eat up your income. And every year you delay, you're not just losing money. You're losing decades of compounding power that will never come back. This is why Warren Buffett became Warren Buffett. Yes, he's brilliant. Yes, he's disciplined. But above all, he started at 11 years old. He gave compounding more than 80 years to do its work. And that's why today, his fortune looks untouchable. Not because he found magic stocks, but because he combined early action, consistent capital, and time. So what's the takeaway for you? Simple. Compounding won't save you if you invest pennies. You need to do two things at once. Start as early as possible, and constantly work to increase the amount you invest. Compounding loves weight. Think of it like throwing a drop of water on a trampoline. Nothing happens. But throw a bowling ball, the trampoline bends, snaps back, and the energy multiplies. That's what happens when you give compounding real capital to work with. And here's the cruelest truth of all. Most people never experience the true power of compounding because they quit before the magic kicks in. They plant seeds, but abandon the field. They expect results in 5 years when compounding only reveals itself in 20. They look for shortcuts, get impatient, and spend the money instead of letting time do its job. But you? Now you know. You understand the real rules. And if you start today, if you give compounding the time, the capital, and the consistency it demands, you'll look back one day and realize that what once felt slow and painful turned into unstoppable momentum. So here's my challenge. Don't wait. Don't tell yourself tomorrow will be better. Start today. Invest something. Increase it whenever you can. Protect your capital, avoid the traps, and let compounding do what it was designed to do. Because the cruel truth about compound interest is this: it doesn't work for everyone. It only works for those who work with it. But let's go even deeper, because I know what you're thinking. All right, I get it. Start early. Invest more. Be patient. But what if I don't have much to invest right now? What if my income is low? Am I doomed? And the answer is no. You're not doomed. But you have to understand the real battlefield. Because here's another brutal truth. Compounding doesn't only apply to money. It applies to habits. It applies to knowledge. It applies to the way you live your life. You may not be able to invest thousands today, but you can build the habits, the skills, and the mindset that multiply your opportunities tomorrow. Think about it. Every book you read compounds knowledge. Every skill you learn compounds your value in the market. Every good decision you repeat compounds your discipline. And over time, those invisible deposits into yourself turn into financial opportunities, promotions, businesses, and higher income. That's the hidden side of compounding, the part schools never told you about. Take Warren Buffett again. People obsess over his billions, his returns, his investments. But what they ignore is that Buffett spent decades compounding his knowledge before his money even started to snowball. He read 500 pages a day. He studied businesses when others were watching TV. He invested in himself relentlessly. And here's the kicker. The knowledge he compounded gave him the ability to invest larger sums with confidence, which then allowed his money to compound even faster. It's a feedback loop. Knowledge feeds money, money feeds compounding, compounding feeds freedom. So if you're sitting there thinking, I can only save $50 a month, understand this. That $50 is important, but what's even more important is how you're using your time to increase the size of your snowball. Because here's the cruel math. $50 a month, even at 12% annual return, will not make you rich. It will give you something, yes, but not freedom. However, if you spend 1 year learning a new skill that doubles your income, suddenly that $50 turns into $500, then $1,000. And when you feed compounding with weight, the magic finally shows up. Let me give you a picture. Imagine two people, Maria and Daniel. Maria decides she doesn't have enough to invest, so she doesn't start. She says, I'll wait until I earn more. Daniel, on the other hand, decides to start with $100 a month, but at the same time he invests in himself, taking courses, reading, practicing. 2 years later, Daniel has turned his career around, doubled his salary, and now invests $800 per month. Maria, still waiting for the perfect moment that never arrives. Fast forward 20 years, Daniel's investments have grown into millions, while Maria is still trapped in the rat race. What was the difference? Not luck, not inheritance. It was the decision to start small, to compound the habit, and to increase the weight as life gave him more. This is why I tell you, compounding is not just math, it's a philosophy. It's a way of looking at every choice you make as a seed. You can plant bad seeds, debt, waste, laziness, and those seeds compound into chains. Or you can plant good seeds, investments, knowledge, discipline, and those seeds compound into freedom. Either way, compounding never stops. The only question is, are you compounding wealth or are you compounding poverty? Now let's go back to money, because I want you to feel this in your bones. Imagine putting $10,000 into an account at 10% annual return. After 10 years, you have about $26,000. After 20 years, $67,000. After 30 years, $174,000. And after 40 years, nearly $500,000. Same $10,000, same effort, but time multiplied it. Now let's say you put in $100,000 instead. After 40 years, that turns into nearly $5 million. That's the weight factor again. Compounding isn't fair. It plays favorites with those who give more. And the cruel truth is, the rich know this. That's why they focus on increasing their income streams, on stacking capital fast, because they know that once the snowball is rolling, it becomes unstoppable. But here's what nobody tells you. The system is designed to keep you from reaching that critical mass. Banks want you in debt, so you never have enough to invest. Companies want you to consume, so you spend every raise. Governments want you dependent, so you keep paying taxes as an employee rather than an investor. And schools, they want you trained to be a worker, not a wealth builder. That's why nobody explained this to you when you were young. You weren't supposed to know. You were supposed to play small, to save pennies, to stay in the cycle. But now that you do know, you have a choice. Either you stay in the rat race, or you start stacking the odds in your favor. And let me be brutally honest. There is no shortcut. There is no hack. There is no magic crypto coin that will make you a millionaire overnight. The only real get-rich formula is this. Acquire skills, increase your income, invest aggressively, and let compounding do its work for decades. That's it. That's the secret the rich live by. They may package it differently, but the core is the same. So how do you start? You start with the 20-60-10 rule. Every time money enters your life, split it instantly. 20% growth, 10% stability, 10% joy. Live on 60%. At first, it hurts. At first, it feels impossible. But remember, the discomfort is the doorway. That 20% is your soldiers, building assets, planting trees. That 10% stability is your fortress, protecting you from storms. That 10% joy is your fuel, keeping you motivated. And the 60% essentials keep you grounded. It's not glamorous, but it's how you build unshakable wealth. And let me show you the true power of this. Imagine you earn $3,000 per month. With a rule, you invest $600 for growth. Over 30 years, at 12% return, that becomes around $1.7 million. Add in your stability fund, and you're protected from crises. Add in your joy fund, and you're living a life you actually enjoy along the way. Now imagine if you increase your income to $5,000 and keep the same system. Suddenly, that $1.7 million becomes $3 million. That's the leverage effect. Not because you worked harder, but because you structured your money smarter. Here's the cruel irony. Most people work their whole lives without ever creating this system. They think discipline is enough. They think working harder will save them. But they're climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall. You can work harder every day of your life, and if you don't understand compounding, you'll die tired but not free. But you don't have to. You can choose to step off the treadmill, to plant the right seeds, to let time and capital and compounding work for you instead of against you. And if you start today, if you commit now, your future self will thank you in ways you can't even imagine. Imagine waking up one day and realizing your investments paid you while you slept. Imagine having the freedom to work because you want to, not because you have to. Imagine knowing that your kids will inherit not just money, but the mindset to multiply it. That's the gift of compounding when you use it correctly. So let me leave you with this. The cruel truth about compound interest is that it doesn't work for dreamers. It doesn't work for procrastinators. It doesn't work for people who wait for the perfect moment. It only works for those who take action, who feed it with weight, who give it time, who stay consistent even when it feels pointless. And if you do that, if you start today, if you build the system and stick with it, then one day you'll look back and realize that poverty was never your destiny. It was only your mindset.